Hey, good Thursday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Penovich here in our Charlotte Impact Studios for Live Weather Impact. It is a glorious Thursday. Still pretty warm out there. We hinted at this yesterday, just not as warm. We had 3 straight days in Charlotte of 81. It's kind of rare to see 3 days with the exact same high temperature, but that's what we did up until today. So while it wasn't 81, it wasn't exactly cool either. It was still above normal for this time of year. But I want to start with a beautiful view from our Dallas camera, which is in Gaston County, off 321, up there on the top of our transmitter, up there around 1,450 feet. Gorgeous sunset. We're actually looking due west. Look off to the right, though. You can actually see the Blue Ridge Mountains there. Beautiful view here all the way from the Piedmont. We are going to have a gorgeous evening. Very dry air in place right now. And speaking of dry, you know it's Thursday, and we got to talk about the drought monitor, which unfortunately, as we expected, got a lot worse for the central and western parts of the Carolinas. The only spot that saw improvement was down in the low country of South Carolina, where the nor'easter last weekend kind of helped them out. But now most of our area around Charlotte Metro South is in moderate drought, and really most of the Carolinas is either abnormally dry or in some level of drought. We do need rain pretty much everywhere. Even where it rained on the coast, it really wasn't all that much. Today's high 77. So we didn't hit 81 for a 4th day in a row. That was the one thing we knew would happen, but it was still way above our average high of 73. And this morning, 56. We have not had cool mornings. I had to look back, and the coolest morning we've had in October so far, 51. I mean, that's pretty mild for the coolest of the month of October. So that's why tonight's going to be significant. We're still in the 70s right now, really dry air in place. And you know the thing about dry air, it can cool down really efficiently at night. So we call it radiational cooling. And tonight, with this really dry air in place, we're likely going to have the coolest night of the season for many of us. Now, we've been in the mid-30s a couple of times in the mountains with patchy frost. We have not had officially a freeze up there in many locations. But tonight for the Piedmont, this would be the coolest night of the season with some mid-40s and even some upper 30s possible. I don't think we'll see patchy frost, mainly because it's just too dry for it. There's not enough moisture to produce that frost. And we could have a little bit of a breeze early to help us out. But it's certainly the coolest morning we've seen so far, and this is actually kind of what you expect for this time of year. And tomorrow, yeah, it's probably going to be near or slightly above average, but this will be a pretty normal October day finally, with highs in the low to mid 70s. In the mountains, we'll see upper 60s. So yeah, probably the coolest night and day that we've seen so far this month. Now, Futurecast shows lots of high pressure. We call that severe clear when we have unlimited visibility. That's what we've had the last couple of days. A cold front is on the way for later in the weekend. Now, this cold front has to run into this really dry air mass over us, so it loses a lot of its moisture, and some of the energy goes north of us. So while I do think we'll see some rain, I would not get my hopes up for much of anything out of this. It looks like it's going to be pretty insignificant, and it may not amount to any rain for some of us. But to the west, tomorrow into Saturday, it's going to look impressive. We're going to have severe weather possible in the middle of the country. In fact, areas around Arkansas, middle Mississippi River Valley could have some strong to severe storms Saturday. And when you see that on the regional radars, you might get excited for rain. But when we look at the rain chances, Sunday night is probably our best chance, and it's 20-30%. And I think a lot of this, the good news, even if you have outdoor plans, I know we can't be picky about when the rain falls, but would not want it to rain on your weekend plans. Even if it does rain Sunday, a lot of it's going to happen at night after we're in bed. Woolly Worm Festival weekend up in Banner Elk. I tell you what, the mountains are going to be packed this weekend. We've got App State's homecoming game. We've got the Valley Cruises Country Fair. We've got the Woolly Worm Festival and Peak Color around 3,500 feet. So you could imagine that there will be a lot of traffic in the mountains this weekend. So if you're going, we fully encourage you to go. We'd love to get the economy buzzing again up there, but just be ready for a lot of traffic and a lot of crowds, and be patient, because there will be a lot of people in the mountains this weekend. Now, talking about that rain, no rain expected Saturday, but Sunday morning, we could see a few rain showers make it through the mountains and then kind of fall apart. So those are hundredths of an inch, by the way, not even tenths of an inch that you're looking at right there. So I think a quarter inch might be the wettest spot we see in our area, and even that seems pretty optimistic for rainfall. Quick update on the tropics down there. We've got a tropical wave which is in the middle of the Atlantic right now, and in 7 days it will be in the Caribbean and could develop. Now, what's interesting about this time of year, that's actually where we see most of our activity later in October into November. The season goes through the end of November, but as we get later into October, into November, the season kind of shifts more down into the Caribbean, Central America, central part of the Atlantic, because we start getting cold fronts and troughs digging down into the United States, and that tends to keep everything away. But the season still gets going. We're more likely to see nor'easters develop now this time of year on stalled fronts or low pressure systems. So don't expect anything out of that, though we honestly could use some of that moisture. So the weekend forecast, at least for the Piedmont, I do expect temperatures near 80 on Saturday. Again, that's ahead of a cold front, so you usually get a big pull up of warm air ahead of it. Sunday, right now I'm going 30%. I think that might be optimistic, but we'll keep our fingers crossed we get some much needed rain. Even if we get rain on Sunday, that is likely the only rain we see for the foreseeable future. I just don't see a lot of rain heading our way long term out of this, so it is going to be rough to get much moisture out of that. Now tomorrow, a great day to end the week. If you got plans outside tomorrow, not that I encourage this, but that might be a good day to maybe call in sick. Maybe leave work a little early. I would think that would be a good day to do it, because look at that. We're going to be in the upper 60s, low 70s. Just a beautiful Friday. So if you got plans going into the weekend, it might be a good weekend, a good Friday to bail early and head out, because it is going to be gorgeous. Let's take a look at that 7-day, the Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast here. Get the graphics to advance. We'll see if they want to advance here. They're stuck. They don't want to get to the weekend because that Friday forecast is so nice. But really, honestly, the weekend looks pretty good as well. As I mentioned, there's a lot going on. I mentioned all the stuff going on in the mountains. Let's talk locally. Charlotte Checkers home opener tomorrow. 49ers homecoming game. Charlotte FC's final home match of the season and fan appreciation night. Oh, and by the way, we've got numerous festivals. Pineville Fall Fest is one I know of near me. We've also got Craft Beer Week starting here in Charlotte. So there is just a lot going on this weekend. And you get the idea. Sunday, those showers will be late. And then you see next week, this is why I say if we don't get rain Sunday, it could be a while. Because if you go into the 10-day forecast, all the way until next weekend, another home game for the Panthers and Charlotte 49ers, a cooler, drier weekend next weekend. But again, just like we've seen the last 17 days in a row, no measurable rainfall in Charlotte in 17 days straight. So if we don't get rain Sunday, that's going to be the longest stretch in a while, because the longest has been 19. So there's a pretty good chance we're going to get to 18 or 19 pretty easily through Saturday. Sunday would make 20. And if we go through next weekend, you're just going to add 10 to 26 days, which will be one of the longest dry streaks we've seen. You're almost going a whole month with no measurable rainfall. So pretty significant dry stretch ahead of us. That's why we're really concerned about drought conditions going into the fall, because as we get into the fall, the leaf drop's happening already in the mountains. That's going to start happening more and more here locally. We start getting dormant vegetation, and then we start getting dry cold fronts, wind, low humidity. And obviously the fall fire season becomes an issue. So it's something we're going to have to really keep an eye on. So as great as the weather's been, and I've heard from all of you, a lot of you guys love this weather, and I understand that. But at some point, we'd love to get some rain, even if it's just one day. And if you overseeded and aerated your lawns this fall, you know what I'm talking about. You'll love to get some moisture to help out those lawns. But right now, in the next 10 days, don't see a lot. So stick around. Coming up after the break, Tim Buckley's going to join me. We're going to have a special guest tonight. We're going to talk a lot about fall colors. So if you have plans to head to the mountains or anywhere in the Carolinas, we're going to be talking more about fall color here in North Carolina. Coming up with a special guest and Tim Buckley. So stick around right after the break. All right, welcome back. Well, I talked about the trifecta of 81-degree days. We've got a trifecta on the screen right now. I got Tim Buckley from WFMY, our special guest in the middle, which we'll introduce here in a second. And I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Tim, thanks for joining us. I know it's a beautiful day out there. I'm really excited, so we're going to get right to our interview today. And in the middle of your screen, we welcome the esteemed Dr. Howie Neufeld. He's a biology professor at App State, but more people than not know him as the fall color guy. He's an icon, really, if you love fall color in the Carolinas. So welcome to the show, Dr. Neufeld.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'll start with the first question, and this is probably the one you've gotten a lot, is how is this year's color looking? I know we kind of had, it seemed like an early start, but then it got warm and things slowed down, and it seems like we're right back to normal. Is that true, or what's it been like in your experience so far?
Yeah, well, we had that cool August, and I thought we were going to have an early season, but then it warmed up again after that, and it put us back on schedule. So for most years, over the last almost 20 that I've been doing these fall color predictions, somewhere between the 10th and the 20th is when you get peak color in the high country here, between 3,000 and 4,000 feet. And we're right on schedule this year. This right now is peak color, and this will be the best weekend coming up.
Greensboro. I took a drive up there on Monday and read along all the popular spots. I know you keep posting these pictures every day. To me, it looks like the color is about as vibrant as you would want it to be. Maybe not the best. I know you've said in some of your posts there have been some years that have been a little bit better, but certainly plenty that have been a little bit worse. If you had to give anybody advice that was traveling from the Triad or the Charlotte area coming up Saturday or Sunday, where would you advise them to go?
Well, right now we're seeing great color anywhere in the Boone to Grandfather Mountain, Linville Falls region. So and that's a very popular part of the Parkway too, especially the Lynn Cove Viaduct. And yeah, you were talking about the quality of the color. I've been rating it a 6 or a 7 this year. As a comparison, 2022 was probably one of our best years in decades, and so that would be a 10. It's still good. 6 and 7 means we still have really good color. It's just the reds aren't quite as vibrant this year maybe as in past. And we are seeing a few trees dropping leaves a little early. As Brad has said, we've hit this long drought. This is about the longest I can remember that has occurred right during the fall color season. But you can go most places on the Parkway if you're at an elevation, as Brad mentioned, between 3,000 and 4,000 feet, and then check the overlooks. So you can go all the way down to Cashiers and Highlands. But now the good news is, too, that the Parkway has opened from Boone all the way to the Virginia border. And so if you want to go up that way, you can also go to Downton Park and Jeffers Park, and you can get some great fall color up there.
Yeah, it just seems like the color's been amazing on the Parkway this week. A question I have here, and this is kind of science part of this, and this is what you dive into a lot in your field of study. What are the main factors that really drive the vibrancy of the fall color here in North Carolina?
I always tell people it's two things. One, the shortening of the days, of course, and then the temperature. And the best color comes out when you have a period of time, about a month before peak color, say starting in mid-September going into October, when you have a preponderance of cool sunny days and cool nights. And if you get that happening, then you're going to get the much brighter reds that everybody always talks about. And if it's warm or if it's cloudy for that period of time, you'll have less intense red colors. So this year, we've had pretty much mostly sunny days, and the one thing that's different this year is that we've had a more severe drought than in past years. So some of the tulip poplars and some of the birches drop leaves earlier, and I'm seeing some of the red and sugar maples dropping early now too, but there's still great color. It's kind of patchy, so you need to drive along the Parkway, and when you get to an overlook, check it out, and some will be good and some will be less colorful, but you can still have a good experience up here.
One of the things that you've mentioned in the past that I've found really interesting is just noting that North Carolina as a whole tends to have one of the longest fall color seasons of anywhere in the country, or maybe the world, like you said. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So colors start at the high elevations because it's cooler up there. And each week, the wave of color will move down the mountain. And so you start to see color of the birches and the other trees that are at the high elevations in late September. And then each week, that color wave moves down till you get to the parkway, 3,000 or 4,000 feet. And then in the latter part of October, it moves into the foothills. And then once you get into November, it moves into places that are below 2,000 feet in the Piedmont. And you can just keep following it right all the way across North Carolina till you get to the coast where you may have color happening around Thanksgiving. So if you think about it, that's about 9 weeks of fall color if you track it all the way from the western part of the state to the eastern part, compared to, say, New England, which might be 2 or 3 weeks at the most. So we have a great opportunity of seeing color. So if you miss it in one area, you can just go to somewhere else and you'll still see color.
Yeah, it sounds like I have a good retirement plan. I'm just going to rent an RV and move from the mountains to the coast throughout that 9-week period. You bring that up. Like, how far south do you see fall color in the United States? Because I think people often wonder how far south to where you get to where there's no more deciduous trees where you're going to have fall color. Is there a cutoff, and has that line been moving north over time?
Well, yeah, you would think it would be moving north if we had a lot of warming. Call me on this if I'm wrong, Brad, because you know the weather better than I do. But this area, the southeast, is known as a warming hole. We've had very little warming compared to other parts of the country. So we haven't seen a lot of change in the timing of the color so far. Occasionally we get a year where it's delayed, like 2019, it was delayed 2 weeks, whereas in 2022 it was actually a little ahead of schedule. But in terms of going far south, I say once you get through below, well, you can have color all the way into the Piedmonts, just that you have a different quality of color because you have different species of tree. It's more oak hickory, and you get a lot more of the pines, which of course are evergreen. So I would say once you get below the foothills, that's kind of where I would drop off the quality of the color compared to what you have in the mountains. But most of the states east of the Mississippi have good fall color somewhere in the state. So it's a huge tourist attraction in this part of the country. And in the Asheville area and in western North Carolina in general, it's the busiest tourist season for the state. So it's very important, and economically it brings, not millions, but billions of dollars to the economy of states that have good fall color.
And so good to see it this season rebounding this year after all the devastation of last year with Hurricane Helene. Have you noticed any impact? I noticed a lot of scars on some mountains just driving around on Monday. What have you noticed in the bounce back this fall from Helene with the fall colors?
Well, the good news is if the trees withstood the hurricane and are standing, they're going to be just fine this year. But of course, the hurricane took down a lot of trees. It affected trees on over 822,000 acres of land, which is 60% bigger than Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And if we think that maybe the larger trees, 12 inches or more in diameter, were the ones that were providing fall color on those patches of land, we're talking maybe up to 17 million trees were downed by the hurricane. So in those patches, I'd expect there not to be as much color, because the trees are either dead or they've been knocked over. But they will recover. The Appalachians can recover fairly quickly compared to forests in other parts of the country because we have a long growing season. But it will take decades for those to come back. So I think what you'll see different this year, if you go to the overlooks, where the trees are standing, you should have great color. But if you're looking at, say, at southeastern facing slopes, which were the ones most affected by the hurricane, you may see interspersed in those colors patches of downed trees here and there. And we'll just have to get used to that until they go through the successional change and grow back up. And then it should recover very nicely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I remember Grandfather Mountain for the Helene anniversary, and that was one of the big talking points, is now we'll have some of these younger forests now developing because of these scars, which could create new species that we're not used to seeing because they have a chance to grow now. Last question before we run out of time, Dr. Neufeld. What do you think is the biggest myth people have about the fall color here in North Carolina?
Well, I think the biggest one is that it's not as good as New England. And I would disagree. I would say, that we have great fall color, but I think it's a different type of fall color. I kind of equate it to the art world, where you can put broad splashes of paint on the canvas because you have few species up north, and so you have the red and the yellows and the oranges of birch, beech, and maples. Down here, we have over 150 tree species down here, so it's like stippling, little dots of color composed of many more species. And so it's a different quality of color, maybe a little more orange-yellow, but it still has its reds. And so I think it has its own quality and beauty that I think a lot of people like to appreciate.
Yeah, I agree, because it is, I mean, I've lived in both parts of the country, and I do think there's something special about the color here. It's just very unique. I like you said, the variations that you can go to the mountains, and I like when there's a little bit of green still in the valleys. I think that's really cool to see when you have the kind of the gradient from top to bottom, and so that's like an underrated aspect of our fall color here. So thank you so much for joining us. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we always look forward to your posts and your updates. And how long will your updates go through the season? I'll finish up with that question.
I usually go through mid-November because I hit the places below 2,000 feet like Stone Mountain State Park and cover that color. And then after that, I kind of call it quits because then the color is so far from me, I can't get to it.
Good point. And then we all start worrying about the snowfalls. That's when we start getting excited for that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And if you guys aren't familiar with the fall color guy, make sure you follow him online. He gives great updates. Dr. Neufeld, thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Tim, so let's talk about it. It's a busy weekend up there in the mountains this weekend. I mean, 3,500 seems to be the sweet spot. He said between 3,000 and 4,000 feet. And could we not have picked a more busy weekend in the mountains? So what are you thinking about this weekend? Where would you go if you were heading up there? And take into account, there's a lot of crowds in certain parts.
So this is all a personal preference. I love fall color. I hate crowds, and so this is a really tough thing. I wonder if you can probably find, some more rural routes. Yeah. So if you avoid the parkway, and gosh, that's such a tough thing to do because that's where you want to be. But maybe you get to the good color and then you kind of take some diversions. You can just drive up there as long as you have your cell service to route you back to where you'd like to go. But I wonder if taking those more rural routes would be a good option. So one thing I did on Monday is I drove from the Parkway up to Roan Mountain, which is a nice spot, not so much for color, but just a good place to go hiking. And the roads in between through Spruce Pine and Newland and these areas, beautiful color. And then you're just through neighborhoods and stuff like that. But, maybe that's a good option if you don't want to be dealing with the parking lots and all that stuff that get overflowed.
Yeah, I just think near the Banner Elk area, Valley Crucis, Boone area is probably going to be packed with all those activities. I think Ashe County might be the way to go. As he mentioned, now the Blue Ridge is open to the Virginia line. That might be a good way to go this weekend because Ashe County is gorgeous. I think it's very underrated. And if you love cheese curds, those are the best cheese curds outside of Wisconsin out there in Ashe County because so many dairy farms, and it is absolutely gorgeous up there. All the way up to Grayson Highlands State Park up there in Mount Rogers. That's a beautiful area if you want to nose into western parts of Virginia up there. So it's going to be a crazy weekend. I can't believe the number of things going on all during peak color, and it seems like he said, Tim, this year, we thought we'd have this early start, and all of a sudden we end up everything's right back where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it really is. And if you just can't stomach it this weekend or you can't make it this weekend, there'll still be some color next weekend. You might not get the postcard of the viaduct, right? That's going to be done. But you'll find some other spots. He shouted out Stone Mountain State Park.
Very underrated,
which,
Tim.
To me, I think that is the best kept secret in North Carolina. I'd like to keep it that way because it is just beautiful. It is a huge monolith rock that you can climb on top of. Yeah. You know that you've done the hike. It's pretty tough. There's a lot of steps, but they have a beautiful waterfall, and they do get some really good fall color. It's just below the parkway, so as Dr. Neufeld was saying, it tends to be, the first of the Piedmont or the foothills to catch color rather than the mountains.
Yeah, and that place is, I know how easy it is for you guys to get to, but it's actually pretty easy for people in Charlotte because it's a straight up shot of 77, and you can get off 77 and you're right
Yep.
there. So it's really not that hard to get to. I think it's a very underrated hiking spot, like you said, and not a lot of people know about it, as you said. So maybe we shouldn't be promoting it as much.
And you're right in the wine country there too, so there's a little bit of everything to do up in that Yadkin Valley area. It's really a pretty spot for sure.
Yeah, before we go, we've got about 2 more minutes. Let's talk a little about this drought because we mentioned it in the leaf report there. And I don't know about you, but I looked back today. Today's 17 days in a row with no measurable rainfall in Charlotte. And this rain chance for Sunday,
Goodness.
it looks like it's evaporating, like literally before our eyes. And if we don't get rain there, this is going to end up being one of our longest dry streaks on record. I think we could go 26 days if we don't get rain on Sunday. So that could be pretty stunning for us.
That's really something. I mean, stat-wise, that's impressive, but definitely concerning, like you said, with the fire danger. We got a little bit with the nor'easter up here last weekend, but not much. I'm interested in this. There is a little bit of a model battle going on, though, Brad. Like you have the Euro that it has the jet a little bit more pointed rather than elongated, and so it is giving us a better chance of not just rain, but also thunder and even maybe a stronger, a strong storm chance as well. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of level out over the next couple of days, whether it's the drier solutions or a slightly wetter. But even if you got some storms, you're not going to get much more than a quarter of an inch of rain out of this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The timing is going to be crucial too. If it slows down and we start getting cooler time of the day, there's a lot of variables. So as I've been mentioning through most of our weathercasts, say, hey, there's a chance of rain, but even if it does, like you said, it's probably not going to amount to a whole lot, and certainly isn't going to put a huge dent in the drought. Which we're in moderate drought down here in most of our area. So, and then beyond there, hopefully we get some rain after that, and maybe some cooler temperatures because the coolest we've been all month is 51. So I'm looking forward to some 40s tomorrow morning. All right, everybody, stick around. We're out of time for this show, but we've got more news coming up right after the break.